Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. I'm Cristina Rennie from the International Trade Center Alliances for Action team. And I'm very pleased to introduce this last session of a webinar that our team has been coordinating together with the YAY community, the Young Entrepreneur Community of empowered by ITC, called The Next Coffee Generation. Insights for young professionals, with the idea of engaging with all of you that are young youth professionals in the coffee sector or are interested and curious to learn more about that. This has been over 7 sessions now, connecting with different subjects that you have chosen. So we're very pleased to have done this in partnership not only with the community, but our partners in the coffee sector, such as Fair Trade International, CLAC, the Agency of Robusta Coffee of Africa and Madagascar as well, Fair Trade Africa, and with the support of the Organization of Africa, Caribbean and Pacific States and the European Union. We're very happy to have these conversations and the engagement that we have seen over each Wednesday. And we couldn't done this with special support of our interpreters in French and Spanish. So if you prefer to listen this session in any of those languages, you can choose the interpretation there in the word icon. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that we have all these sessions recorded. So we will be sharing with everyone registered on the webinar series, all the series that we are putting into a Google Drive. So if you want to go and check that out, please do so. As every Wednesday, I want also to invite our participants to send any questions or comments on the chat. This is something we have been really enjoying in each Wednesday. While we know we're very much saturated from Zoom, it's great to meet all of you each Wednesday and exchange. And this is what we want to do today, and wrap up, let's say, this webinar series with a discussion of really 3 young professionals in the coffee sector, each of them working in a different angle and having a conversation about that. Before we go into this panel, I wanted to introduce my colleague, Sarah Charles, co-author of the ITC Coffee Guide, to tell some words about this great tool. Over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Christina. Hi, everyone. I feel a bit strange every week introducing the Coffee Guide, because I know that a lot of you watching today are here every week, so you hear me say the same thing every time. But just to be very brief, so this is basically the ITC's Coffee Guide. This is the 4th edition. The first edition came out in 1992. And the latest edition is basically tries to be as inclusive as possible in terms of who it targets and also who it represents. So it was basically an effort in collaboration on the content from across the industry and from across value chain segments. So we recently were at World of Coffee. Some of you here might have been there as well. And we promoted the Coffee Guide there a lot. And what was really nice for me was to get feedback from people coming up saying, yeah, the Coffee Guide. Like this helped me so much when I started my business, or like producers also telling me this really helped me navigate the bureaucracy of things. It's a super useful source of information. So it was really nice to hear that it's useful to people and that they're using it. And I think the feedback is that it's also really, really useful for people starting out, which is the point of this webinar here. And I think apart from the Coffee Guide being a good resource, these types of webinars of, people sharing perspectives from different parts of the world is also really important, because this is where you learn stuff that's off the page, like things that can inspire you or things that can challenge you. And so, yeah, I'm happy to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for presenting this every week with a different angle. It's really important that for ITC and for our team to show that there's so much information, and we know that knowledge gap is one of the obstacles that young professionals might have going into an industry. So really having these tools and that knowledge sharing for us at ITC, it's very important. So yes, I'm very pleased then now to introduce our panelists for today. First, from Ethiopia, we have Kenan Asefa Dukamo, who's the export manager of Danye Bensa Coffee. And then we have Alison Strake, based in Germany, but actually originally from the US. She's the coffee manager at Fairtrade International. And then we have Paula Magallanes Paiva, who's a curator and it's also a producer from Fazenda Recanto from Brazil. So I'm just gonna put our videos on when I'm speaking with you. I'm very pleased that the three of them are joining this week. I know there has been a busy week for World of Coffee, as Sarah was mentioned, but I also know Paula was in the Sao Paulo Coffee Fair as the industry is activated. And so welcome to the three of you. Perhaps my first question, let's start with Paula. It's Paula, how did you start to work in the coffee sector?
Hey everyone, first of all, thanks for this webinar. It's a big honor to be here with you. I am the 5th generation of my family working with coffee at the Recanto farm. So I born and raised into the farm. So I spent all my life here, and I think I have so my history and it's combined of the coffee, the farm history. So when I was 14 years old, I moved to Belo Horizonte. It's a big city in Brazil, to study in an international school and an Italian school, so I can speak Italian also. And then I have started, after the high school, I did international trade in the university, with the focus to back to the farm and export our coffees and manage and help my parents to manage the farm. So when I finished the university, I have started to improve my knowledge in coffee. So I did a month in US in a importer and roaster to start to roast and to start to cup. And then I have started to do some course. I was volunteer at the Q grade course. I was volunteer in the Cup of Excellence. So in 2017, I became Q grader and I became a national judge of Cup of Excellence in Brazil. So I did the national jury in Brazil for 2 years. In 2017 and 2018. And in 2017, I was the only woman in 30 judges, so I was the only one. In 2018, Cecilia and Marina went the national jury with me, so we were together there. And in 2019, I have started to do the Q processing. So I did the Q processing level 1 and Q processing level 2. And then last year I did the level 3. So I think, again, I'm one of the only woman in Brazil with this certification. So when I back to the farm, I was really interested in help my parents to be more profitable here. So because of that, I was studying a lot and improving the knowledge to try to do something different here with them. And now I'm the responsible of the quality of the farm. So every single coffee we produce, we cup and we test and we do everything. So we know all the process here at the farm. So we know if we use some fertilizing and how it will be changing the cup and everything. So I did some exporters directly. from the farm to US and to South Korea and to Europe. So that's my work here at the farm.
That's lovely to hear. And I also know Keenan comes also from a family of producers. So Keenan, I wanted to ask you, well, to tell us a bit more about how you started and why you decided to continue with your family's business. And also when you did that, what was the hardest challenge for you?
Hi. I first actually thought I wouldn't be in coffee. I am more computer science, like a programmer or in computers. So after I finished studying, I moved to US after high school from Ethiopia. And after I finished university, my father asked me to move back home and to work with him for a bit, even though I had an interest in, in technology. So as soon as I start to learn about coffee. Even before that, I just to help when I was in the US, I helped them sell coffee and things like that, which still wasn't the biggest passion or interest, like something I had not thought of to do. So once I moved back, I realized when I was working the last, I don't know, 4 years or 3 years, I realized that there's a big opportunity in coffee, and I became passionate about coffee. So just seeing the sector and how much it needs young people and new orientation is that's when I decided, like, okay, I'm gonna pursue this for a long time.
What made you think that when going into the sector?
Yeah, because when I walked into the sector, I see this old, a lot of like export companies are fading up because there's a lack of understanding the new coffee wave. So there's a third wave going on. So usually my nature for me, when I start something, I really want to understand first before I touch my hand. So what I did was like, what customers do we have? What do we have on our hand? I went to talk to our customers globally that are in US and other in Europe, Asia. Then I asked them what the problem is, and they had like hard time marketing the coffee, even though sometimes the coffee is good, and sometimes also working with new process and things like that. So, and you don't also see a young people in the sector. So you have these exporters that are just focused on doing washed and natural commercial coffees, and not a lot of people has been able to feed the coffee into the new wave of specialty or the third wave coffee shop. So that's when I decided, okay, we can market this, we can make sure also the quality control and new processing has been implemented. So that's when I decided to actually like implement these things in our company to have a really well organized marketing and also quality control and things like that. So that is the biggest thing. Like, I didn't realize there is a huge thing coming, but nobody's looking at it. Like, not a lot of exporters are looking at it that way. They want to be part of it, but it's been really hard. And unless you're young and able to connect with new rosters and things like that, it's going to be hard for you to go and like a classic way of just selling coffee to traders as washed and natural.
And Alison, you don't come from a coffee family, so
No.
how for you to get into that, and was it hard not knowing anything or anyone?
Yeah, I actually come from a wheat and corn family. I'm from Midwest, so my family does industrial ag, and we don't necessarily share the same ideals on what smallholder farming looks like. But I started in coffee, oh gosh, like 8 years ago, maybe, if you want to like say when I first started as a barista in college. I was an activist. It was really doing a lot of work around farm worker rights, particularly rights of immigrants who do farm work in the United States, and then got connected to the fair trade movement. So I was working as a barista for about a year and a half. before I started working in like the fair trade system where I work now. But I didn't actually dedicate my professional career to coffee until about 3 years ago when I started my job here in Germany, which seems odd because I was before living in a producer country where I, saw coffee for the first time and was working more closely with producer organizations when I used to work with CLAC, which is one of the fair trade producer networks. And that's, it's funny because my first product that I was interested in was actually bananas. I was much more interested in the tropical fruits and that type of supply chain. And then I just dedicated so much time to coffee and loved the people. And that's kind of what drew me in. But in terms of challenges, I would definitely say the challenge for me, and sometimes I still face it, maybe even subconsciously, is just being young and being a woman. And I'm I'm a white woman. I'm not even a woman from a producer country. So definitely can feel this sort of, I would say adult centric, this kind of feeling of, you're definitely singled out if you're a young person. And especially I think Keenan was mentioning, in the sector he's working in, there aren't as many young people. Or, Paula mentioned being the sole female Q grader at the Cup of Excellence in Brazil for a while. So definitely in those types of spaces where you might feel intimidated or how did I get here and how do I position myself and kind of make my point and get my point and my stance across. And that's still a challenge sometimes. So yeah.
Paula, what do you think about those challenges that Alison mentioned?
Actually, it's really challenging to be a woman in the coffee scene. So it's hard to not to do business, but we need always to certificate that we are good in cupping, we are good in processing, we are good in exporting. So it's challenge to be a woman in this world. So but I think things are changing a lot, and we are there are a lot of women doing really nice things, a really nice job, and we are having more space. We are having more voice. So things are changing.
Yes, and on those changing things, we're also very pleased that during this series we had a lot of young female professionals sharing very interesting work, and it was not difficult to find them because they're doing such a great job, that it was very natural for us to invite them as panelists. Perhaps on those opportunities, I wanted to ask Kenan, now that you came to Ethiopia with a fresh eye, seeing the industry and showing and seeing how you could contribute, or what were those spaces? What are other spaces where you think there are opportunities for younger generations to jump into? You're muted. Sorry, we cannot hear you.
I'm here. I think big opportunities in terms of understanding coffee and on quality control, especially because there are a lot of stations still that doesn't have a proper quality control. So I think working on those things is still big, still can give a lot of work opportunities. As well as marketing. Marketing has been an issue for most, I think, not just Ethiopia. I had a discussion with the roaster a few days ago. I have a good coffee from some producing country, but I don't have a good marketing material. It's not there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you need to have something that can represent the coffee, a good coffee in a well-story and well-produced content. So there is a room for that also, like for creating a well organized content and high quality content. So within our company now, we feature like every year photographers. Every year we feature, every harvest we feature 2 to 3 photographers, and we pay those photographers. Also, we use those content. So coffee can actually create a lot of jobs for, I believe, for the young people. Also, we have to also in Ethiopia, especially, we have to work in education, which I've been focused on for a few months now to start coffee education, like on roasting and on cafe, on farming. We need those things because people, if they don't understand how the end user use their coffee, it's still going to be hard for them to ask them to do quality control. Because if you just tell people to quality control the green and they don't understand the impact it does when the coffee arrives to the roaster or to the cafe, then like it's gonna take such a long time for people to be awake on quality. So I think also on education, it's very important to focus on education. So an opportunity, I believe, on those things, on increasing the quality of the coffee and marketing the coffee as well as I myself had an opportunity.
No, now you're back. Sorry, we lost you.
I myself.
2 seconds.
For a second, yeah. For a lot of young people, I think the difficulty will be is getting their foot. As she say, as earlier, like people want a certificate, and getting a Q certificate is not an easy thing in producing country, paying $2,000. But there are passionate people that want to engage in coffee. So for me, myself, I engage because there was already a family business. I have seen that as an opportunity, but for a lot of people, there is no data or there is no education center. So that has been a challenge. Even myself, at first, I didn't know where to learn about coffee. So it's been really a big challenge. So, but those are few of the points, just to answer your question, that young people can focus on.
We have Sarah that also has raised her hand. Come in, Sarah.
Yes, I just have a question actually for all of you, because I know that, so Paola is, I think, 5th generation, Kenyan, you're also not a new generation producer, but the question is also for Alison. I mean, I know that sometimes when you're working in your family's business, you can sometimes have not arguments, but like disagreements, maybe with the way that things should run. Maybe it's harder to find your place at the table because you're young. So why should they take your voice into account? But even the question is also for Alison, not necessarily for anyone working in the coffee sector. It could be, you know, young people starting out as cuppers or roasters, or it's like basically, how do you position yourself on the market? Like, how do you say, like, what would you say the qualities are that you need to market about yourself as someone young, like what you can bring to the table, basically? It's the question for all of you.
Okay.
Who wants to start?
You can go ahead.
I mean, how do you position yourself? I think this is something I'm asking myself all the time, especially in the virtual setting. I think this also played a role. Like if you're in a webinar and it's like all these maybe a little older people and like they're experts in their field, and then you're like they're trying to make a point about something, and you know, you maybe don't have as much experience in coffee, but I would say networking would be key. So, I mean, for me, being able to build up my profile in coffee has just been all about the people I've been able to meet, whether that's in person or on Zoom. So just like even reaching out to people on social media. I mean, I found a lot of inspiration from copy professionals online, especially in the pandemic. So I just reached out to them and asked them for advice or how they, got involved in coffee. How could I, either amplify their work or learn more from them? So I think that that's been a huge element. But and even like at World of Coffee, I think I felt even more kind of included in conversation just because of people I know. So in that sense, now that I think about it, one thing that's helped me is kind of latching on to a mentor or like someone that can kind of be my ally, guide me, and if I'm in a tough spot in a particular conversation or wherever it may be in a multi-stakeholder setting, that person can kind of like, hey, give me the floor. And I found that both in my own organization and also on the outside. So that's been super useful. And it's not always easy. It's like building trust with someone, but I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, I think the mentor thing is a really good tip. I think anyone so, whether it's a producer or a roaster or I think if you can find someone who can like pass on their wisdom and their tips, and also they can take you under their wing to position you a bit so that you can get the respect from the industry. I think that's super helpful. But what about, so Paola and Kenyon, like how do you navigate like being in a family business and having disagreements and stuff?
How I did it was actually when I actually joined the business. I first told my father, like, if you don't trust me to make the change or to do the work, then I shouldn't work. But if you're ready to work and to take the change and to take the mistake I do, then I'll do it. Like, because somewhere else people don't know you and they're willing to trust you because they haven't seen you like they haven't seen you since you were a child walking, whatever, like since you were a baby. So sometimes I would see it's a challenge to take an advice or to take a thought of that person that you've seen. So that's the conversation we had. So after that, working, I don't think we had intensive challenge like on just luckily actually it could be misunderstanding, it could be a challenge, but if you have that understanding at first, and if your family believed in you, then there would be failures, there would be success, so they're able to take it since they let you work with them. So I believe in that, as long as you are doing all your best. So for me, I try to treat myself as I'm working for somebody else. When I work every day, make sure that I'm disciplined on what I'm doing. Like I put my own goals, I put my own agenda on what I'm doing, because sometimes when it is a family business, it can get you, as the second question, you don't know where you stand. If you're working for someone, you get promoted or you get good feedback and things like that. I think the biggest challenge has been that actually. Family, usually they don't give you a feedback. Either you are like, you have an issue on work or things like that. That was one of my challenge for me. It wasn't like, we had a lot of argument. But how I see myself on like this has been a challenge, especially the first few years, like how I see myself in the market, So now I kind of found the spot because, like she said, networking and being open to things like this, to come out and to talk to people, to network with people, that has been big for me. I have started to do that the last couple of years. Before, I was just a cool guy that doesn't network as much. But I learned, to really go out and meet with people, and also to learn something new. I try to delegate whatever I have been doing a year before. So if I'm signing contracts the last year and doing things like following up shipment, then I delegate that. Then I focus on what can we develop, and I meet with people that can help me develop that, and also try to learn something new in coffee every day. Meet with people, try to learn from people as well as from formal program, like getting to go get a Q grading or other like processing or things like that, like involving generally in this kind of things. I think it's very important to grow, but just seeing yourself, and if you're not doing the same thing you did for 2 years or so, then you are seeing a progress. You are also creating other people that do what you have been doing. I think you can see your growth, like your leadership as well as your coffee skill going up by doing that. That's how I see myself.
Yeah. And Paula, how about you?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of challenges to work in a family business, but actually there are a lot of challenges to work with other companies. I think it's different because sometimes we need to separate like professional life and personal life. And me and my parents, we live in the same place. So we live at the farm. So my parents, they are living here, and me, my husband and my son, we are living here at the farm. So we spend 24 hours together. So sometimes it's hard to differentiate these things. But before I came to the farm, I have worked in other 2 companies. So it was something that I wanted to do because I thought it was important to have a different experience working for other people, working with other people, and understand my position as a worker before I try to be the owner. So sometimes it's hard to understand our position when we are owner, and I'm young, and so I wanted to have more experience before I came to the farm, yeah, that's it.
Well, speaking about family businesses and how it continues in the coffee sector, we also have one of our participants, Richard, who says, in fact, if young people are involved in the coffee sector, their future will be secure in time. I was involved in coffee farming by my father. He's not longer, but I still do the farming. Just another example from our audience. And then we had a question from Felix, who's asking, again, more about the family business situation. That is the knowledge acquired within the family business transmitted only verbally, or is there's a library of thousands of notebooks that assemble this knowledge? So how did you learn that? Was it from your parents, or was it from like records or other tools that are available?
Sorry, I'm actually at the airport. I should have said it first. Traveling, and I'm just waiting, in some area. I just want to do it. It happened to be today. So, anyways.
Well, thank you for joining. Thank you for that. This shows how young people are multitasking. You're about you're joining the conversation.
I just came ahead before my flight just to do the panel, but I think that is very good question. I think someone had the same experience. I feel like for me it was very difficult. That's why there's nothing written. There's nothing as much I can learn. It was just operation there on the hand. So, but I learned a lot from my father. Like he's been producer and exporter for 25 years. So I have get to learn from him. and sit down with him, ask him a lot of questions. So it's very challenging for the people that doesn't ask a question. And I have actually in this day through my coffee learning journey. At some point I stopped writing, but I was continuously writing what I was learning and what I was doing. That today sounds like a normal thing. So, but I was asking a lot of questions and writing in my notebook. I don't know when I'm gonna like have it properly, but that's very important. I think as a young people, we should actually not have for other generation to come. We shouldn't have go with our knowledge. We should put them in paper and we should let them have it. And people can start from like something at least. So, but for me personally, I learned verbally by asking a lot of questions because sometimes also to train you, they don't know, like they already assume a lot of things that you know. Even myself, sometimes I train my team, I already assume they know some other stuff. Then I realized they, you know, like they don't know some of the things. But if you record it as you know, then you're not leaving any barrier. So unless the person is like asking a stupid question, like people consider a stupid question, it's very hard to pick it up quickly. I mean, you learn as long as you're longer in there, but it speed up my knowledge in coffee. Learning from my father, he has 25 years experience in coffee, so I was able to learn from him a lot. I was just helping in the business actually by bringing new perspective.
Nice. So actually, my farm, it's from my mother family, and my father came here and he met my mother in the university. They are both agronomists, and actually my father is really passionate by coffee. He's really fascinated by coffee. So I'm learning a lot with Dan and with him because he's living he's doing with passion, so it's easy to learn when you live with someone that loves that job. So it's easy to me to learn with him because of this. So.
I also wanted to ask you about, this mentor element that Sarah mentioned, but also other people in the industry, young professionals, someone that you have seen and perhaps has inspired you to continue your career in the sector. Alison, does anyone come to your mind?
Yes, I have so many coffee idols. I guess I would say one would be one of the former panelists on this webinar series. Her name is Carla Bosa, and she's a coffee producer. And I met her at her first SCA. Actually, just overheard her talking to someone, and I recognized her accent. So I was being kind of nosy. And I was like, "Hey, are you from El Salvador?" And then we got connected. But she, since then, that was like 4 or 5 years ago, has completely taken over her dad's farm with her sister, and I'm actually wearing their first round of merch today. Pretty excited about it. But they have a really strong social media presence, really awesome storytellers, just about anything that's related to coffee. So she's definitely one. And then another, I think, would also be Cecilia Samada, who's also from Brazil and wasn't involved in coffee either, and then kind of just fell into being a cupper. And she also has a really multicultural kind of history, being part of the Japanese diaspora in Brazil, and has kind of been able to like combine her knowledge of like, you know, the Japanese paladar and her paladar is like her palate, I should say, with her knowledge of production in Brazil, and kind of like, again, just connecting the different parts of the supply chain. And that's been, super cool to see. But there are so many others and so many interesting young people doing just, yeah, really good work, whether it be at Origin or in the sector more generally. So those are just two. There are more.
Cecilia is actually connected. So hello, Cecilia.
Hey,
You're
Cecilia.
there. Kenan, who has been your inspiration? Someone young working in the sector? I think we lost Kenan for a second. So when he was about to answer. Paula, I see you thinking. If you want to jump in while Kenan rejoins us.
Yeah, actually, I have a really good friend that inspired me a lot, and this is Joe Schuler, and he's always improving his knowledge, and I'm always trying to improve like him. So he's a really good inspiration to me.
Joe Schuler, he's based where? What does he do?
Now he's in Brazil.
Huh?
He's a Q grade instructor, Q processing instructor. He was in the board of CQI, and yeah, he started to do a really good job of direct trade with Brazilian producers, and now with other producers around the globe. So he did volunteer work in Myanmar. So me and my dad, we went there also. So we have started to work with the same producers in Myanmar to help them with the production. So it's really, I'm really inspired by him. So that's it.
Kenan, we lost you when you were about to answer.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was on the Wi-Fi. I just turned it off probably. For me, usually people that I know personally also inspire me. I think one of the roaster that I work with first is one of the actually a person that influenced me the most being coffee. He was actually he's a barista. Also, he owns a roastery in Houston. His name is David, and I went to train intro with him when I was a student. So I was at his cafe. I was learning from him how he leads his team, how he does roasting and cafe managing. And he also took me to Guatemala at some point to go see production in Guatemala. And he also competes with our coffee for our lot on Cup of Excellence. So he's very relationship driven, but he has so much passion to support people in coffee. Like he has supported me so much, and he also inspired me to really support others in coffee and also being coffee. So one of the reasons actually was to get to know him, for me to be like really to take coffee serious. Was he was like when we went to Guatemala and things like that. But it's very interesting, like to care about somebody's producer's son, to take him to, which I wasn't even interested. He just decided to take me to make sure, I'm tuned in. So it's very inspiring.
Thank you for that. I wanted to ask our audience to share any questions that you might have for any of our three panelists. Please write them on the chat or in the questions and answers chat. And while we receive your questions, I wanted to ask to each one of you, if you would have an advice for someone young that is interested in the sector or is in the sector about how to navigate like what you have done, the three of you during your careers, what would that be? Let's start by Paula.
Maybe open to learn, because the coffee industry changes a lot every year, every season. So people must be open to learn and to listen, experience like from the old people, and understand how we can be sustainable in the next years, thinking about the future of our workers. So it's important to the young generation to understand we have a big challenge for the future as a producer. So we we must take care about the production. We must take care about the workers at the farm. So um, the farms must be attractive to young workers. So it's important uh, to people understand this, because we must need the like the all the chain of the coffee needs to be pay attention in this thing, because we need to pay more to our workers, so we need to receive more from the importers and roasters. So it's a really important thing to think in the future.
Well, thank you. Alison, what would be your advice?
I mean, if you're interested in getting into coffee, I would say jump in and don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that was a really good point that Keenan made, is like, you know, there are just things that people don't know and you won't know until you ask. But something else I was reflecting on with somebody this past weekend at World of Coffee is like, there are tons of different opportunities in coffee. I mean, you can be into IT, you can work on digitalization and traceability of supply chains and app development for coffee. If you're into logistics, you can work for an importer, exporter, storytelling, marketing, social media, sensory work, so being a Q grader. I mean, there are so many different parts of coffee. Political advocacy also, I think, is where, I mean, more in terms of like, I love like working with people from origin and people who work at importers and exporters, but I think there's a really big need for more young people in like the sector, like the larger institutions such as you know, International Coffee Organization or European Coffee Federation, or even in certification. So like jobs that are more centralized in importing countries, it would be really great to have more young people involved in those types of discussions, because those are kinds of those types of organizations are really leading industry discussion. And sometimes, you know, young people aren't a part of it, or even producers aren't a part of it. So I would just really encourage you to network and to see that like broad scope of opportunity that exists in coffee. And yeah, contact me, contact those of us on this call. I think we'd also be happy to help you navigate.
Thank you for that, Keenan.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, I met many people that want to be in coffee in different aspects. So, so what I think is, like usually people want to export or produce coffee, or people that want to create even a marketplace for coffee, things like that. I have talked to several professionals that want to get started or start a company around coffee. But one of the biggest issue I saw was like, when you start, they focus on more on, like, let's say export. They focus on more selling than learning at first. So I feel like a lot of people that are in standing, they have to understand first how the ecosystem works within coffee. Like it's a long chain. So how does it work? How can I be part of this? What are the problems? Can I bring to the table? So that is very important. Instead of like, oh, buy coffee, like go to somebody and say, you know, like it's really also coming to me and say, Kenan, you rather want to say, I want to learn about coffee, how does it work, than sell coffee for me. I get a lot when people start as a new. So I think they should focus on the learning, like they should start on focusing on first on learning curve. Throughout that journey already, they will be in the business. So I think as you start, I feel like you need to focus on learning and learning and learning. That's what I would say, you know, like throughout that time. Then for me, the first coffee I sold was I went to enter at David's roastery. Then I brought a sample for him just to try. I was like, just have this. But I went there. I was being a cashier, roasting, just learning. I just want to learn. Then he called me up. I was like, I want to buy your coffee. That's when I started working with them. But I didn't really went there to sell. So like really focus on networking and learning first. Then throughout that journey, I think you will get into creating your marketplace. You'll getting into selling your coffee or being part of the coffee community.
We actually had a question about export while you were giving this advice, and it was from Serihun, who says that for the exporting process is somehow difficult and need an experience for it, as it is a challenge, delivering the coffee. How do you handle those challenges in the processes of exporting if you are young in the coffee sector?
What is it? Can you repeat the question for me?
So it's more like, how have you learned to navigate the challenges of delivering the coffee when you're working in exports?
How I got through the challenges. I think every year the challenges are different. Honestly, like I used to 1 year it's logistic, 1 year it's a supply, 1 year. So it's try to get ready as much as you can before like the coffee harvesting started. So sometimes the problems start to become similar. For the last, let's say for the last 2 years, the biggest issue was logistic to deliver and also financing. So you have to find solution for those two things, like work on things, how to improve or how to get it. Most of the people trying to solve those problems up front. Once the coffee is here, now they start worrying about logistics and things like that. So still it's challenging even if you got ready, but it makes it a better experience than unprepared. So I had when I got started, I had a hard day. Like I wasn't ready, so I was taking all the challenges that was coming and hit you hard, especially the coffee challenges. So I just urged to get ready and also to talk to experienced exporters, which is cool.
We also have another question from the audience, and I think it's going to be our last question as we are running out of time. So I wanted to ask Paula to start answering this one. It's from Kelly, and it says, what do you think is needed to change in the sector to attract more young people?
It's hard to answer this. Actually, the sector is changing a lot as everything in the world. So maybe it's more about the interest of each person. So what they are expecting to find in the coffee sector, because it's really challenging. So I'm not sure what we can change in the coffee sector now to attract more young people. But thinking in the worker, it's hard because it's really hard work at the farm. So if you are picking coffee, if you are doing everything at the farm, it's a really, really hard work. So thinking on the workers, we must be more technological and we must be more efficient. And things that I think in Brazil, we are doing good. In Brazil, we have a lot of technology. We are we are efficient in the production. So I think that's it.
Alison, what do you
Yeah,
think?
this is a really tough question. And as Paulo says, the industry is changing. But I would say, and I don't have all the right answers to this, but really breaking down some of the existing power dynamics that exist. And that's in origin countries and also in importing countries, and thinking more from like trying to keep in perspective with what the different realities are from different actors along the chain. So if we're thinking about a worker or a smallholder farmer versus, a private farmer who owns his land, and, kind of also just being a little more empathetic in that sense with whatever, in terms of whatever position you hold in the sector. I just, and that's hard. And I think that's going to take like time as well for people that are our age to ascend into different positions in the coffee sector, especially when it comes to driving like policy and legislation, for example, or like farmer, the generations kind of like overturning. So people like Paula and Keenan like taking over their families' farms, and how their perspective is so much different from the perspectives of those before them. So, I mean, it's not one thing or the other, but it's definitely going to take some time. And we just say be empathetic, and if you are like an expert or like one of these people that have been in coffee for a long time, take that into account in your work and try to make space for young people, especially young people from origin, to share their perspective.
Kenna, you're muted, sorry.
I don't know if we have this pattern in other countries also. There's a big issue on sharing, like knowledge. Usually on the, like when people are working in my organization, I don't see that issue because once I figure it out, I don't let people do it. But there is an issue of insecurity. If people teach their job or train others, they would feel no need. So for them, so that actually slow down the learning curve or inviting new people. So I think it's just having open-minded people to share to young people a lot of resources and knowledges and responsibilities. And if you're young and want to involve in coffee, if you can survive, I think it's better, at least even to offer to get into the, to get into the coffee as an internship and things like that. Like if you want to get into producing companies and things like that. Also the companies, I urge them to open up for people to start entering into the sector. That's how you make it actually attractive. In a lot of developing countries, still the unemployment rate is high and people are willing to work. So I think it's also the company's responsibility to open a door, at least as an internship. I know sometimes it's really hard for people to come in unless they're experienced in coffee, because coffee moves fast and it's a harvesting. So, but at least to open their doors for internship, which we do in our company. Like we try to open every year in all positions as an internship, so people can learn either to be hired in our company or work for somebody else, just to let their feet into coffee. So it's both sides. The companies to be open to let them in, also young people to willing to come in without nothing upfront rewards for now,
Yes, it's also connected with what you said before. It's having those fresh eyes, being open to have fresh eyes. And I know we have passed our time. There's many comments I would love to read on the chat. And what I can tell you is that they speak a lot about the passion of the people working in the coffee sector, of young people working in the sector. And there's also some further questions to the three of you. So I say to the audience, if you want to reach out to us over email, you can send me an email. I will be forwarding your questions or comments to our panelists from today. I wanted to thank the three of them, Kenan, Alison, and Paula, for sharing your thoughts today, and also Sarah for her contribution, and our interpreters. I wanted to let you all know that this webinar series, this phase is ending up today because we had 7 sessions, which was quite long, but we were very happy. And as I said at the beginning, for the community and the level of interaction. And I also see that we have also some requests of even creating WhatsApp groups between the people attending here, which we didn't expect, being honest, but what we do expect and we do want to continue to work is with you and in these sort of platforms that, as Alison was saying, are very important for that exchange and being able to raise questions together. So I can say that as ITC Alliances for Action and youth, YEI and entrepreneur community, we want to stay in touch with you, gather your feedback of these 7 sessions and what you would like to do from now on. If we want to continue, let's say in a month, to have other sessions, or if it's a WhatsApp group, or what is it that could work for you to keep going, this like having this conversation going, and also for ITC to provide you any resources and that platforms, the spaces that you think you need in your career, in your sector, as we are trying to build a sustainable coffee sector together with the industry, and we think that the inclusion of youth is fundamental for that. So yes, I'm a bit sad to have to say goodbye to this series and to everyone. It's been a pleasure for us, and an absolute pleasure to have panelists like Alison, Paula, and Kenan, but also so many other panelists that we have had during these 7 sessions. We also wanted to thank our colleague Claire from the YEI community for supporting this session. It has been an absolutely pleasure, and we'll see you next time. Please stay tuned for our survey or email and send any comments. We love to hear any feedback, ideas, or even subjects that you think we still need to address. I saw a comment there, and I think we need to address female engagement or participation in the coffee sector, which we couldn't do. So Felix, thank you for that comment, but we were not able to also touch such a, let's say, rich subject during this session. We will try to do it, let's say, the next time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.